I'm Sean Fennessey.
I'm Amanda Dobbins.
And this is The Big Picture, a conversation show about zombies and other things. Today on the show, we are digging into 28 years later, the third film in the 28 Zombie series, a reunion of the original 28 Days Later's team of director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland, a favorite of this show. CR's here to break it down.
The real alpha.
In more ways than one. We will get into that. But first, a programming reminder. If you are listening to this show, you are listening to the 799th episode of this show, which means Monday will be the 800th episode of The Big Picture, which is a big number. Is it a meaningful number? I say yes. And so we are doing a mailbag.
What did we do for 750?
I don't remember.
Don't you have the archive?
I don't actually. As you know, it was destroyed.
So that's gone?
That's gone, yes.
Holy shit.
Wait, that might be saved actually, but I'm not going to look back at this exact moment. So if you want to email us anything about movies, we gave you an advice episode recently. No more advice, at least for now. Amanda is taking that advice directly on her IG, which is at Alpha Zombie Girl. You can find her. DMs are open. You can email us at bigpicmailbag@gmail.com. That's bigpicmailbag@gmail.com. Will you be emailing us, Chris?
No, but I want to know, when do either I get my own solo mailbag for Big Pick, or
solo mailbag?
me, Tracy Letts, and Joanna Robinson get to do a third chair mailbag?
Oh, that's a good idea.
You guys have like 9 podcasts. Why do you need more podcasts?
I find the questions
I
for
would
Big Pick are
like
very
listening to
provocative and fun. Yeah.
You're saying you don't get good questions from
We
your
get
listeners.
fine questions.
Okay.
A lot of them are like, I am a doctor and the pit is good. And it's not really a question.
I see.
Which I appreciate their feedback, though.
Why do you think you don't get good questions?
Maybe because Andy and I answer all questions just with our pod.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
There's no mystery.
That's probably what it is. If Tracy Letts would like to do a solo episode,
a mailbag?
he could.
But not me.
He's allowed.
Okay.
He's allowed. You keep working. You know? Keep putting up those shots.
Keep plugging away.
In case you were wondering, it appears that episode 750, which I think is a rounder number, or like a more significant number, was Moana 2, and I believe also Hot Frosty.
Yeah, and where were you for that episode? Sitting at home.
That's true.
Where was I? Grinding tape on Moana 2 with my precious daughter and Yasi and Rob.
Yeah.
That was a fun episode, but not really monumental. So maybe we'll make Monday fun. We'll also talk about Elio and maybe How to Train Your Dragon as well.
I was going to ask you about that. So am I going to see Elio in like 20 minutes once this is done?
Hopefully this episode is longer than 20 minutes, but I'm intending to see it on Sunday.
Yeah, I got to work it into the schedule. So,
okay.
Right,
okay.
We're on the clock
Well, you're
now.
You're passing off your children shortly, in 24 hours. And when you do, you can go right to a children's movie by yourself.
How great.
That sounds exciting.
What a time to be me.
You did it. You had a bit of a break from the episode this week. And so a raft of news came across the transom. CR, you've hit a little bit of this stuff on the watch this week.
We did Deliver Me, yeah.
Let's just talk about Tom Cruise's Oscar. So he's getting an Academy Award.
Yeah.
He's getting an honorary Academy Award.
Okay.
And he's getting it along with a number of other folks. Debbie Allen, the choreographer, Wynn Thomas, production designer, one other person who I'm afraid, Dolly Parton, of course.
Dario Argento.
No Dario Argento. I wish that were the case. Alas. Maybe next year, Dario. So I noted this on X.com. This is awfully reminiscent potentially of the Paul Newman situation where in 1986, after not winning Best Actor, after being nominated many times, he was given an honorary Oscar for his good works in film. And then the next year he won for The Color of Money.
Co-starring Tom Cruise,
which we know now next year, Tom Cruise will be appearing in an Alejandro G. Inarritu movie called
Judy?
Roughly Judy, but I think that's a fake title for this film, which is a film about a man who the entire world hinges upon.
Oh.
That is, I think, a comedy.
Okay.
Now, Inarritu, not a big favorite of this podcast, but is someone who often directs actors to Academy Award nominations, directed Leonardo DiCaprio to an Academy Award win. Do you think that the Newman will happen here, where Cruise will win and then win again?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Part of it is a feeling. Part of it is, I really wonder with the Inarritu movie, is he going to subject himself to a regular press run?
No. I don't wonder about that. I think that he will not.
So can you win an Oscar without having to play the game?
It's an interesting question. You don't think so?
I don't think he'll do a press tour, or I don't think he'll win
Well, do you
an
think
Oscar.
if he doesn't do the press tour, do you think he can win that Oscar then?
I don't, but I don't think he's going to do it anyway, because I don't think he's going to win it anyway. I mean, I understand the Paul Newman comp, but Paul Newman was nominated for like 45 Oscars, and
I think it was 8.
Well, that's a lot, and I think Tom Cruise has had, and that's more than Tom Cruise.
I think Cruise is 3.
Yeah. So the Academy has never really taken him seriously in the same way that they took Newman seriously, even if they never gave him the Oscar. And there's too much downside for him to be like on a podcast.
Sure.
You know, I don't know whether he can do it. So I don't think it'll happen, but I'm still holding out for stunt Oscar.
I feel like Brad Pitt, his win showed us the path for Tom Cruise, which is that he's famous enough that he did a kind of the minimum amount and made the most of the minimum amount. Right. Every time he had to give a speech, he appeared to be gracious. He had one good joke for every speech, praised his co-stars and collaborators endlessly, and then talked about his journey as a person minimally, but effectively. Who knows with Judy? I don't know what that movie, if that movie's going to be good or not, but I think you could, if you're famous enough, I think you can do it. If you're Mikey Madison, you have to pound the pavement. You have to do interviews. You have to get out there and show everyone who you are. Everybody knows who Tom Cruise is, for better or for worse. So I'm not writing it off. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Let's talk about Tom Cruise in training, Glen Powell.
Yeah.
So Glen Powell this week signed up for a firefighter movie from Ron Howard. Ron Howard already made a firefighter movie. It's called Backdraft.
It's pretty good.
It's a solid film.
Yeah.
And I guess he wants to go back. Imagine if he made another film about the guy from A Beautiful Mind, and he was just like, he's going again. He's looking at that story one more time.
Apollo 14.
Yeah. Glen Powell, very busy man right now. He this year has The Running Man. Possibly has Huntington from A24, though it seems like that's going to go into 2026. He signed up for the untitled J.J. Abrams puzzle movie. He's got a Judd Apatow movie on deck. He's got a Barry Jenkins movie on deck. Top Gun 3 is being written, according to Christopher McQuarrie, and now this firefighter movie. Plus, he's going to be a TV star shortly.
This Chad Powers
forthcoming Chad Powers football show. And there's also talk of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre TV adaptation that he might participate in.
Which you tweeted about from the San Diego Zoo.
Did I? What did I say?
Didn't you?
I just know that Taylor Sheridan has now thrown his name in the ring for that franchise.
He wants in on that.
I mean, there's a big bidding war going on for the rights to Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
And I tweeted from the San Diego Zoo?
I think so. Or maybe you just texted from the San Diego Zoo.
I think it was just a text. It's amusing that you confuse those two things. I don't recall tweeting about this story. I
don't know. It's just like, Sean is with his child somewhere and has an opinion about a movie.
Yeah, I don't know if I was at the zoo. That seems unlikely, to be honest, given what my experience was like at that zoo. Glenn, overexposed?
Well, I would say
hold your tongue.
From my POV, I wonder if you could have told Glen Powell this is what your lineup is going to be. Would he have gone back and been like, I don't need to do a Chad Powers TV show for the Manning brothers?
It's possible.
I mean, I think you're right.
It sounds the most disposable of these projects.
Yeah, it's the horror movie that the ingenue made before she won the Academy Award. Right. It's the House at the End of the Street. Isn't that the Jennifer Lawrence movie where it was like, oh yeah, remember when she made this in 2014? Better get it out soon. She was the winner of the Academy Award for Silver Linings Playbook. I think he's going to be fine.
I'm happy for him.
These are mostly good projects. Always a little skeptical of the J.J. Abrams project, personally.
You and I are on record on that. There were set photos from it recently. He was wearing a vest. I saw a tweet that said, I'm sorry, I can't remember who had this very smart thought.
It was Jim Twitter.
Jim Twitter tweeted.
After he asked you for some advice.
Thank you for all your skincare thoughts, Amanda. Here's a take on Glen Powell.
And it was just like Glen Powell, crosses another job off his Barbie job list. And firefighter. It's good. It's funny.
We love our
tornado chaser. I love him. He's the best.
2 Cannes titles going to November 7th. One is Die My Love, the Jennifer Lawrence movie, which we talked about. That movie acquired for $24 million, which that's a lot of money for that movie based on the reviews that I read.
The stuff that I read about this movie makes it sound like the play that Scarlett Johansson is doing in Marriage Story. Where they're like, we pretended to be otters and then one otter wore the other one. And you're like, what? What is this movie about?
I think it's about a woman experiencing postpartum depression, but with also some animal role play, I suppose. Lynn Ramsey never one
Not
to make a simple movie.
in Marriage Story, in my experience.
So Sentimental Value, the other, big Cannes film from Joachim Trier, is also going to November 7th. I just walked out of the movie theater for 28 Years Later where I saw an extended trailer for Predator Badlands. That's coming out on November 7th. I'm very excited about that. We just talked about The Running Man. That's also coming out on November 7th. So that's a busy day.
Yeah.
It is. I wonder if things will shift slightly. I mean, and also you have to assume Die My Love and Sentimental Value will be limited and then
good point
going wide.
I think that is likely to be the case. However, The Running Man and Predator Badlands, those two movies have the exact same core demo, which is me and Chris and some other guys. And
I even watched the Predator
and Jim
anime
Twitter.
thing. Yeah.
Jim Twitter.
Or not anime, but the animated, I don't know.
It was great.
Yeah, it was really
Killer
good.
of Killers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. So you watched an animated film, but only because it had predators in it?
I low-key watch animated stuff, but very selectively, and never what society tells me I have to watch.
Can I tell you something? By announcing on a podcast that you do something, it is not low-key. This is important to understand that is not low-key.
My entire thing
How do you
is to pretend like I'm not on a podcast.
How do you find your way
friends.
there?
What's that?
How do you find your way there to these animated films? Like,
Well,
what is your decision criteria?
I'm a relatively complete. I'm a completist when it comes to Predator.
I know. You once acted out one of the films in my office. No one else was there.
The other day, Sean, me, and Zach went and saw Die Hard with a Vengeance at the movie theater, and Zach was relating Knox asking him questions about what he was doing, and he was like, "I'm going to see a movie with Sean and Chris."
Yeah.
He's like, "What's the movie called?" He said, "Die Hard with a Vengeance." And then I was like, "Did he ask what it's about?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "I really want to explain Die Hard with a Vengeance to Knox."
We're not that far away from that being the case.
There used to be these things called payphones.
Will you go full rewatchables when that happens? Will it be like, in our picking nits category, I would have pointed out here the failure to understand.
Do you know who Doris Burke is? Okay, so...
okay, one more piece of news. Two more pieces of news.
Yeah.
Three more pieces, but it's one that's not on the doc.
You've got one.
Oh,
You've
wow.
got one tucked away.
Yes.
Okay, Doris.
Wow.
First trailer for Springsteen: Deliver Me From Nowhere, which is coming out October 24th, written and directed by Scott Cooper. In case you couldn't figure it out, this movie is about Bruce Springsteen. At a very particular moment in his career, he's played by Jeremy Allen White, and it is about the conception and recording of Nebraska, his famed sort of acoustic, desolate
Lo-fi.
one-man album, which is recorded essentially simultaneous to Born in the USA.
Prior to, I think, right after The River and before Born in the USA. But it's as Jeremy Strong explains in this film trailer, it's what he had to do to heal the world.
Yeah.
Yes. And
first himself.
He had to
and
heal
heal the
himself,
world. He had
and
to
then
fill
he
the
could
whole. Yeah.
And knowing what we know now,
Sure.
that the world hath been healed.
Sure.
Do we need this movie? Because we're healed.
Fuck yes.
Okay. So you're fired up. You're
You're
ready to go.
moved.
Yeah.
That's great.
I wasn't moved,
How
but I was like,
much-
first of all, he does a very convincing rock version of Springsteen's moves. So shout out to Jeremy.
This is one of my biggest concerns with this movie, is that he looks bang on in the Born to Run stuff.
Right.
But that's not what this movie is about.
We don't know
Yeah.
what this movie's about, though.
Well,
Well.
I won't spoil what I know about it, but that's not what it's about.
You think it's about his dad?
I mean, yes,
Yeah.
there are flashbacks to
Yeah, but I was
his
kind of
daddy
hoping
issues.
that would be like 35 seconds.
That was when I was like, uh-oh. I mean, sure, but they put it in the trailer.
I think it's about a tortured artist conceiving of a
Yeah.
important work, and that work is not Born in the USA.
I think it's about John Landau.
I mean, I'm looking forward to Jeremy Strong's work in this film. It's
Yeah.
amazing that he's going from Roy Cohn to John Landau.
Yeah.
Like, what other guru figures can he hop from?
Yeah.
How much Scott Cooper stock do you have? I think is the question you should ask yourself.
I don't have a lot, but I'm open to this type of movie. And then was also like, when I saw the flashbacks to the, and then sincere Jeremy Strong is a little tough for me.
Okay.
And so once he is...
So when he's like listening to the music on
Right.
headphones.
Well, once
and
he's
crying.
the voice of God being like, he's going to heal the world, I was like, okay. So
That's
this
actually
is how we're going.
live footage of me listening to Rosillo travel logs. It's just like, trying to cancel it. Just like, I can't believe he's...
Is there a new one?
No.
Okay.
The supporting cast of this movie is pretty great. Stephen Graham, Odessa Young, Paul Walter Hauser, Gabby Hoffman, Mark Maron, David Krumholtz. That's a lot of my hitters right there.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I'm obviously looking forward to it. I had a lot of angst about
Yeah.
A Complete Unknown last year, and because I love Dylan so much, and that turned out to be false and unnecessary because that was a pretty good movie. I'm a little more skeptical of this, but I have less skin in the game with Bruce. So, we'll check it out.
Okay.
We'll do an episode about
That
it.
seems emotionally responsible.
Will you listen to only Bruce from now until the film comes out? All summer?
Sure.
Bruce
Knox
summer?
loves Bruce.
Do you have a
So-
favorite Bruce Springsteen album? I asked Andy this.
I'm not getting into this with
Okay.
all of you. No, when you just started clowning each other about Tunnel of Love, and I was like,
No,
okay,
it's just a
all
very
right.
Andy pick to say
Like,
Tunnel of Love.
you
That was
know,
Andy's
it's
pick?
okay.
Yeah.
Like I
Tunnel
didn't work
of
its
Love?
fit.
And it was Andy's pick, and I knew it was Andy's pick from like his face. I was like, it's Tunnel of Love. Isn't
Yeah.
it?
You like called the shot?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I get that as like a move that you would put in print to
I
be
know.
like, actually, it's Tunnel of Love, but to sincerely believe it's Tunnel of Love,
Ask him.
it's Bruce
Yeah.
Springsteen. Okay. Anyway, Catherine Bigelow is finally putting a movie out.
Mhm.
Speaking of October 24th, same day as this Springsteen movie, A
Okay.
House of Dynamite is hitting Netflix. It is scripted by Noah Oppenheim, who's Chris's favorite former news executive from NBC, and also the author of Jackie and Zero Day.
0 Day.
Which you did watch.
All of.
How
yes.
did it conclude?
I
Can we
told
say
you.
that now?
It was,
Did you?
Lizzie Kaplan is AOC, and she participates in a coup against the
No,
president.
You did not tell me this.
He told me this and I broke down laughing.
So Lizzie
She's a
Kaplan-
leftist congresswoman who
Okay.
unites with a centrist congressman played by Matthew Modine to shake America out of its stupor.
Okay.
By
Is it possible that it is a foretold documentary? Like, is it in play? What you just described?
I fucking hope House of Dynamite is
And
not
what's
a foretold
Bob
document.
De Niro doing?
He's a former president who runs a kind of special counsel investigation into the cyber attack.
Okay.
This is sort of related, this Bigelow movie, because this Bigelow movie is about a missile is launched at the United States. We don't know where it's come from, and now the White House needs to determine who fired it and how to respond. And it's, it feels like a TikTok thriller, not TikTok, the social media app, but a ticking clock
With
Well-
C's.
with C's. Thank
Yeah,
you. Well
sure,
put.
Yeah.
Idris Elba, Rebecca Ferguson, Moses Ingram, Greta Lee, our boy Tracy Letts,
Yep.
Anthony Ramos, Jason Clarke. First Bigelow movie since Detroit, which is 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So interesting.
Close to the same layoff Danny Boyle has had for features, right?
It's a good point. Very, very similar. I think Danny Boyle's 2019
Yeah.
was yesterday. So this is, 8 years away for a Best Picture winner and one of the signature filmmakers of the 21st century. Pretty exciting.
I'm open. I mean, topically, we'll see how it goes.
I would imagine this is in the running to be at Venice.
I am excited about that.
So you may be seeing it sooner than all of us.
Okay.
You know
Which
what'll
is
be
exciting.
fucking sick?
What?
If the missile comes from space. Everybody's like, oh, it's a geopolitical thriller. And it's like, no, Martians. Martians shot one right at us. And now Idris Elba has to go into space and kill them.
It could be that.
Yeah.
That would be quite a swerve from Bigelow's previous work, but you never know. You had a final piece of news you wanted to share.
There is a rumor on the internet
Oh,
Okay,
great.
here we go.
that the teaser for the Odyssey is going to be playing before
I did see this.
Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
Jurassic World Rebirth.
So I'm glad you brought this up. So
Do you know? Can I tell you
There's
where I
some
learned this?
where'd you learn it?
From my new favorite Instagram account. Hold up. You guys did not respond to my Shrek Instagram that I sent you.
That was sent to me and Bobby.
I
Yeah.
know, but
Okay.
you didn't respond.
I've had quite a journey the last few days. I apologize.
That's
if you could
fine.
only imagine what I've been doing
That's
in the state
fine.
of Georgia.
I mean,
You'll hear all about it in private.
You know what? I can, which is sort of the problem. Okay, so that was a reel by Movie Watching Girl. So shout out to her. All
that's
one
your
world.
alt?
Yeah, that's but she knows how to like make reels.
Movie watching Alpha Mama.
Anyway, good materialists content over that I don't want to spoil, but it's really good.
Oh,
and then
that is.
that
that
was
that
I mean, it was
that
genuinely
very
good.
That was very
And
good.
then have you seen
Not yet.
Material? Okay. Well, I look forward to
because
hearing
of
your
your
thoughts.
Marxism.
Yeah.
No, I've just decided that I unconditionally support the film and don't want to see it.
We were engaged in one of the best text exchanges of the year with a colleague
Uh-huh.
about the film. I won't reveal who that colleague is, but maybe you can guess out there if you're a listener of the Ringer Podcast Network. So here's the thing I did. I assume we're going to get invited to a screening of Jurassic World Rebirth.
Okay.
But in the event that we're not,
You've rejected that invite.
no, I have not.
Okay.
I want to see the movie. I bought a ticket, and I have never seen this ticket offered before, but I bought a ticket for an 8 a.m. screening on July 2nd, the day the film that is being released. and that I assume we will record based on the episodes that we have coming in the next couple of weeks. So if you would like to join me at the 8 a.m. screening of this movie at the AMC Americana.
Oh, 8 a.m.
We could see the Odyssey trailer if it's not on the internet yet and talk about it on that episode.
Oh, that's fun.
I'll try to make that work.
Okay.
And now that requires waking up early and
I
getting
can-
our children out the house and everything.
No,
I can
that's
wake up
somebody
early.
else's
I just
problem
might be
for
out.
the rest of
I
the
might be
summer.
out of
Good
the
luck.
state, but I will try to come back for that.
You'll be out of the state.
Sad.
Yeah.
Oh.
Where are you going?
To Portland.
No.
Again?
Again.
Yeah.
Again.
You were just there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, come back.
Okay, but there was also some
Because
speculation.
I was going to ask you to bring some donuts from
Portland?
No, from
Oh,
all time
oh,
near
from
your
all
home.
There is some speculation that this would be the last opportunity this summer for it to air before a Universal film, I think, or something like that.
I believe historically Nolan typically just does those like minute-long teasers that have very little footage in them.
Yeah.
So, the famous like Heath Ledger doing the Joker laugh in the Dark Knight trailer,
It's
for
the
example.
Dunkirk teaser is insane. It's really good.
That's like the ticking.
Yeah.
So this will just be you reading the Odyssey in the original Greek with the paparazzi
Honestly,
photos of
wearing a
him
toga,
getting
yeah.
swole.
There's very few times where I've ever been like, we should go live, like
Yeah.
walking out of the movie theater, but this is one of them.
It's honestly, if you want to talk strategy on the show, it's better as a standalone piece of content.
Okay.
And you know what?
Live? Oh, okay.
Let's just let it flow. We're
Okay.
going to let it all flow. Speaking of flowing,
Yeah.
let's flow into the zombie state. 28 years later. So I've just seen this movie. I have not had a lot of time to sit with it. You guys got a chance to see it earlier this week, or did you see it yesterday?
I saw it yesterday.
Okay.
I saw it Tuesday.
As I said, written by Garland, directed by Boyle. Boyle's first movie in a long time. Boyle, a filmmaker who I honestly don't know a lot of your thoughts about him because we've only had one movie of his come out since we've been doing the show.
And it was yesterday.
And we hated it.
I just absolutely melted
You
down.
guys weren't doing the show during Steve Jobs? No.
No, that was 14, I think, or 15.
I thought it was 15.
So,
yeah.
Chris and I have a shared love of a lot of his movies.
Right.
He's definitely a huge favorite of mine, but he has been in this kind of, I don't know if he's like an exploratory period. He did some television.
Mm-hmm.
In 2012, he did the Olympics ceremony. Like he's kind of been.
I think he did some theater stuff.
He did some theater. Yeah. He's been doing a lot of other projects. And in the sort of early to mid 90s, established himself as kind of a linchpin character who we don't usually identify with the typical Hall of Famers of this show.
Right.
But I think if he were more active in the last 10 years, his name would come up more. But anyway, this is, he made this 28 Days Later film 23 years ago with Garland. And that came off of him adapting Garland's novel, The Beach, for the 2000 film with Leo, which I just rewatched and which actually pairs very interestingly with this movie, which I'll get to. So this new movie stars Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ralph Fiennes, Alfie Williams, who is really the star of the movie. He plays Spike, the young boy at the center of the story. Shot by Anthony Dodd Mantle again. This is their 7th collaboration, though I've never seen a movie like this from the two of them. It was shot on an iPhone 15 Pro Max, which I believe is the phone I'm holding in my hand right now.
Yeah.
That's the iPhone that
But some of the
have.
rigs that they use are unbelievable, where it's like a giant ring of iPhones.
Yes.
So that they can capture some of the specific action that they're trying to do.
And we should talk about the way that they capture the action because it is pretty extraordinary. In our document here, it says the past movies that have been shot on the iPhone include Tangerine, High Flying Bird, Unsane. Obviously, Soderbergh has been doing a lot of work with this. Usually in those movies, it's about the kind of claustrophobia or surveillance that you find from, the phone existence. This movie kind of explodes that whole concept. It makes things massive and wide. Scored by Young Fathers, kind of a rock, hip-hop, Scottish group. And the story is this. 28 years after the rage virus escaped a medical research laboratory, survivors have found ways to exist amidst the infective. One group lives on an island connected to the mainland by a single heavily defended causeway. When a father and his son leave the island on a mission into the dark heart of the mainland, they discover the secrets, wonders, and horror of the outside world. Amanda, what did you think?
It's not that heavily defended, but anyway.
That's a good
when
point.
you just think about it. You don't want to start with him? I mean, I'm happy to start.
I think you should start.
Yeah, well, we know what you think. In a positive way. I guess it's not as interesting to start with me because I'm there for everything like besides the spinal cords, you know, and like 2 thumbs up for the spinal cords. Like
you mean the gore and viscera?
Yeah,
in the
but
movie.
like they and quite literally they had many of them, and you saw them being removed in various ways, and that was cool. I mean, it was gnarly as fuck, but that's the point. But whether I respond to it is about everything outside. It is like, have you created a believable world? Like, do I believe in these characters? Am I emotionally invested? Does it have any sort of ideas or anything to say, you know, how does it look? Does it, you know, is it pretty? Basically, I thought it was pretty great. I was definitely emotionally invested. I cried. I was mad about crying, and I do want to talk about that.
Okay.
It is a day that ends in Y, and so I have some notes on Alex Garland's female characters. But, you know, that's okay.
The third of them.
But, you know, infected or not, as it turns out. But I thought it was like very moving, like very assured, like incredible and engrossing to look at. Great performances. Pretty great setup, great third act cameo, which not even a cameo really, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So I'm very pro.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like I just thought probably my favorite of the year, one of my favorites of the year, up there with Sinners and Warfare and Black Bag, bursting with ideas, social ideas about society, ideas about infection and disease, ideas about national identity, ideas about filmmaking and genre. Unbelievable. Like every scene I felt like was vibrating with an energy that is really lacking from genre film or blockbuster films. And I was riveted. I thought it was really funny. I too was brought to the edge of tears. Like I was really moved by the second act, or I guess the beginning of the third act. And I can't believe like the sleight of hand that this movie. I thought this movie was going to be a warrior movie about Aaron Taylor Johnson kicking ass. I had no idea that this was going to go like fucking full war horse on us. And it's a coming of age story set in like a full horror environment. It's amazing.
Yeah. But also, I mean, there is a lot of that viscera that you're describing, but it's very much a fallen empire movie. It's sort of about like what happens in the aftermath of
Brexit.
200 years of power and wealth, and then this turn towards isolationism. And to have that idea be so obvious on the surface, but then to actually spend time to like explore what it means and the ramifications of people, and to watch someone leave the island in the film as the young boy and his father do at the beginning of the film. And then, and we will spoil this movie, though I think clearly we all highly recommend it. It's definitely one of the best movies of the year. To then have another character leave the island too, and then see the ramifications of another person leaving, and then just try to like reckon with what is trying to be communicated here about the idea of Brexit specifically, but I think around the world, the sort of like the fact that they are being isolated from a rage virus, I think like says a lot about how the filmmakers view the contemporary environment. But the movie doesn't skimp at all on the hardcore genre stuff. There is a kind of elegiac tone to a lot of what's happening and the sadness between the parents and the child. But there's a giant mega zombie with a huge swinging dick in this movie ripping people's vertebrae out. I mean, it is literally the two things that we are always asking for, which is like, if you can give us hard genre and then pack inside that genre some deep theme, which this movie has a ton of, it shouldn't be surprising. Like, I feel like Yesterday is the blip. And then when you start going through old Boyle's movies and you're like, oh yeah, they're all kind of like this. They all feel weirdly transgressive.
28 Days Later is about a post 9/11 Western world, right?
Yeah.
Like he's able
waking up to the destruction.
Translate like a moment in time into a genre movie with so much creativity. I thought that like there was a really sly expository dump in the beginning of the movie where they mentioned that continental Europe has like fixed it. Like they're like they've like contained it and moved on.
It is also
it's a retcon of the second film.
And it's like titles, and they're just like, the second movie did not happen.
Exactly.
In this
but it's also kind of like very telling about, I think, the way Boyle perhaps sees contemporary British life, of like all these other places that have like we self-inflicted wounded ourselves, and now like these other places you're gonna have to go there to get a doctor.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice to set it in the Highlands of Scotland too, and the identity of Scotland.
That's the beginning.
British
Then it
Empire.
moves down into Northeast England.
Right. The way that the movie is made, it looks unlike any movie I've ever seen, and so I was hoping like maybe we could try to like unpack how they did this thing. I haven't read anything about the production of the movie. I didn't want anything spoiled for me after we saw that first trailer that we talked about on YouTube like 3 months ago. Yeah, with the Rudyard Kipling poem. But there's two huge choices. One is obviously shooting it with an iPhone, which gives it this kind of like hazy on the edges and then tight focus in the center of the frame. And then there's the editing style, which particularly in the action sequences is this sort of like skip, freeze, cut action, which is very strange and takes like a second to get used to because this is a movie that's largely about like bow and arrow murder of zombies. It looks very like Robin Hood in the first 30 minutes and then kind of morphs into something significantly more disgusting. But I don't know. How did you feel, as someone who doesn't watch these movies all the time?
Right.
But I assume you felt something significantly different from your standard issue zombie movie.
Yeah. I watched 28 Days Later and then 28 Weeks Later, like in succession this week. That's how I've been spending my week. And 28 Days Later is also like this style of filming is very famous. And so it's like very low quality digital cameras in 2002.
Yes.
Which, it serves the story and is very cool. But like, if you're watching it at home on your TV now, it is like kind of borderline unwatchable.
It looks like shit.
It looks like really, really, I mean, you can get a sense of what they were trying to do with the style. And it like clearly is this style is serving the movie, but you're just like, what am I looking at? Like, how can I see this? Like,
is that Cillian Murphy walking across? Yeah.
And that bus is on the side. Like,
it did feel very different in theaters.
Right.
Because in theaters, they struck prints of the digital video. So it was the weirdest looking thing. I mean, I remember vividly. And then when you watched it at home, it didn't have the same power.
Right. But so it was interesting to go from that experience and that style of filmmaking to iPhone world. And obviously you can like see things a lot better. But there was just a scope to this that I thought was very beautiful and like does serve the story in terms of that it's an isolated island, but like you're like considering like the larger world. So and then the zombie stuff, I mean, they really, really like blood and
this is way gorier than the
way
film.
gorier. And it's, I guess I have a quote unquote queasy stomach about this stuff, but really I just kind of like don't look. The way that I react to things is like, oh, okay, so now we're in the like, eyeballs are gonna start exploding things. So I'm just gonna like look over here, and I like just kind of look down, and so I can like kind of see it in my periphery. Then I could still see a lot of blood in the periphery. That's kind of the thing. It's like, can you look away and like, no, you can't really totally avoid this one. But even I can tell that it is. It's both gnarly and very impressive.
Yeah. I was wondering if it was like purposefully done that way as a sort of, maybe not a comment, but like an elevation of the sensory overload that we've experienced in the last 20 years. That like to really be blown away by something like this, you kind of need to go in super high definition video, right up close into the eye of the zombie as the arrow penetrates, and then freeze the camera for 1 second. Like it felt like the same way that's an aesthetic choice that he made to shoot on digital video to show you like kind of a grainy, broken down world, and what would it be like if you tried to capture it on the last remaining camera. That in this movie, it's sort of like there's literally one character with an iPhone, the last iPhone before it loses all of its battery. And
he's like, check out my fiance.
That part is great.
It's amazing.
Why does her face look like that? My friend, when she eats scallops, that was genuinely really funny.
But these like aesthetic choices are kind of like informing the big ideas of the movie, which makes it more fun and more interesting to kind of unpack in the aftermath, but also just sitting there and watching it. It's more exciting. Yeah.
The British critic Frank Kermode said that this film was a combination of Ken Loach's Kes with Cannibal Holocaust. And I thought that was like a pretty pretty awesome way of looking at it. Not only is it shot in this very distinctive way, but it's cut, and the visual language overall is really distinctive, where Boyle's cutting in like Laurence Olivier's Henry V and infrared shots of the infected crawling around the forest.
I loved that.
And these kind of surreal, almost like folk horror kind of images of the alpha on the horizon and his minions rising up. And he's playing with a lot of genre, not only tonally, but visually, like mixing in all these different kinds of, like vernaculars of film that I've really responded to.
Yeah, two movies that I thought of while watching it. One was Sorcerer, which kind of like plunges you into this hellscape and you're just stuck there and you're on a mission to try to get out with your life. And then the other one was The Lighthouse, because The Lighthouse has a kind of similar, it's like an emotional torrent on top of you of all around you at any moment something terrible could happen. And similarly, weaving in the folklore aspect of that story and the idea of being like just on the periphery of impending doom. But it's pretty audacious for a mainstream studio horror movie that is the third in the series to completely pivot stylistically and to be hitting you with this, like you said, dropping into the infrared, especially going into dream sequences where Jodie Comer's character is, eye level in the water, speaking to her son with through a dream with red eyes. Like, this is very, kind of dark and haunted and unusual kind of stuff. So I was like blown away by all those choices. And then the story is a very interesting trio of acts, like very clearly dad, mother, Holy Spirit, like those are the kind of, there's the sacrament is really being explored here all the way up to the upside down cross that is shown at the end of this film and the bone temple that we explore very briefly. Let's start with the first one. So the first one is a story about a father and a son, and the father is teaching his son how to hunt, hunt the infected.
And it's basically a village rite of passage that like boys of a certain age get brought out into the world for the first time. And
they learn the rules of protecting and what it means to be. And then there's like a celebration afterwards. It's like a bar mitzvah or of a better.
Totally. It's like and Vikings are referenced. It's very much like the Viking conqueror training their son. I saw some people saying that this section didn't work, but I thought this was incredible. I mean, I thought this was like breathtaking. Like pure excitement. Aaron Taylor Johnson, always happy to see him. Thought he was very good in this.
I mean, I guess it is like the most standard, for lack of a better word, of the three. Like they start you with a pretty much it's a dad and a son, and they do a great job at communicating like the tension and the the expectations that the kid doesn't really feel like he can live up to, and then then they hunt zombies for a while. So it's like the movie hasn't totally like turned on its side yet in this act, but I thought it was very emotionally affecting. Like when the dad gets up to something that maybe he shouldn't get up to, I gasped. I was like, and it's like, come on, that's screenwriting 101. It's like not surprising, but it has the punch that you need. And then I don't know, those slug zombies were really ugly. So it works, and then it lays the foundation for everything that just kind of gets like weirder and weirder in a good way as you go along.
I thought that the causeway chase on the way back to the village was like one of the most amazing things I've seen this year. And this kid, Spike's loss of innocence coming through probably the most universal thing, which is finding out your dad's a liar. And that your dad is like a flawed human being. And he comes back and he's being celebrated in this village, and he can't get over the fact that his dad is making up stories about his accomplishments. And this is like a very big pub culture thing. Like, I saw a guy out there 6.5 feet tall. I kicked him in the nuts, and you're like, no, he didn't. He ran away. That really was so perfectly like staged, I thought.
I agree, and even just I assume that causeway is a real place, like a real location.
Yeah, there was
they
a
discovered.
Jude Law miniseries that had like a similar premise of like this causeway is only open once a day, and it's like he's on an island looking for someone. It was a couple of years ago on HBO. It's pretty cool. Yeah, just can't remember the name.
But
of
just
it
visually, the way that's captured is remarkable.
Yeah.
And so propulsive. And in the light, in the dark. And also
you
like
see the water kicking up as the alpha's chasing
exactly.
them.
Yeah, there's like there are a number of times where he goes really, really wide with the camera, but like the overhead shot of seeing the alpha chasing them, and there you can see the kind of distance in their
like
footsteps.
all in the moon, yeah.
And then there's so many of those vista shots that you were talking about, Chris, where it's sort of like you can feel the camera, you can feel just an iPhone camera moving like this and giving you the panorama as suggested on your phone. That I think actually weirdly like situated me more in the action than some more recent We've been talking about a lot of action movies this year with Ballerina and Working Man, Amateur, Accountant 2. There's been a lot of like pure classical action. And a lot of it, because it's hard to stage these scenes, has so much cutting that you feel like you're watching like a whole day's shoot.
Yeah.
As opposed to a sequence like this where you feel like you're like locked inside of the moment. So I found that like really impressive and just fun. I feel like you're right though. It is the most standard. It's what you expected the whole movie to be.
Exactly.
And the fact that it kind of neatly pivots away from that when this boy does lose his innocence and realizes that, something is wrong with his mother and a doctor exists somewhere on the island. And that's where that, the origin of the fire on the island that he locates. And I guess is that just like an old man who lives in their house on the island?
I thought that was her. I thought that was like an uncle or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he shares the history of Dr. Kelson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, his father, also shares the history of Kelson. And that is a chilling sequence when he recalls being a young boy and stumbling upon Kelson's menagerie of death.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then the boy decides
that shot also is really
the corpses lined up so perfectly. Again, like
chilling and
this is small stuff, but
memorable.
I'm like, this is how you stage
Yeah.
a movie like this. This movie is pretty expensive, and you can see where some of the money is spent. But like a sequence like that, where you're like, yeah, we have like 300 extras, and they all have to lay on the ground.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't look like cheap or digital or
right.
And then that pivots him to bringing his mother back across the causeway so that he can discover the doctor and find out what's wrong with her. What did you think about Jodie Comer in this movie?
I thought she was sensational. She is amazing. And like I said, I was really invested. As soon as she meets her fate or it becomes clear that she's going to, I was like really, really upset. Now, obviously, like I am a mother to two small boys. So I was just like, no, I can't. This is horrible. But I don't know if it's like a hugely developed character.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. She in the performance, like I think gives it a lot of life and soul. So I thought she was great. I don't know. When can we talk about like the turn?
As soon as you want, we can talk about it right now.
Well, I just, it happens very fast that she's just like, okay, I guess I got to go die now.
Yeah.
I was like, I think that we would be preparing our son a little bit more for this.
I guess
they prepared him with a morphine blow dart.
Sure.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, like, so when when her character is first introduced and her malady is first introduced, I was like, it's really fascinating. Like, what would you do with untreated depression in a situation like this? Like, I thought she was suffering from something like that. And then as the movie goes on and she has more like lapses in cognitive awareness, you're like, oh, it seems like it's more significant than that even. But yeah, like the sacrifice. I just think that you can't have the Jodie Comer character conversation without the Ralph Fiennes character conversation.
Right.
Well, because of what he says about the memento mori, about remembering.
It comes before that though, because I think the most important, you can feel. Let me go back. I really love Alex Garland's movies that he directed.
Yeah.
If I were to lodge a criticism against them, it would be that they are very schematic conceptually, and that you can feel him moving the characters to help make points. Now, I would say Warfare and Civil War, personally, I felt that less than I have in the past, but that he has this like diagrammatic approach to story and structure. This has that too. A new child is born, and so one must die. Like that is really in the literate understanding of genre filmmaking. As soon as they, and I do have maybe a science corner is in order for the birth of a zombie child.
Yeah. And
no,
that is not a birth of a child of a zombie mother and uninfected.
Yeah.
I can't logic through that very well.
Right.
You're not as learned in the ways of the zombie But
the infected. Well, I've seen all of them recently. So actually, when I was watching Jodie Comer, I was like, oh, is she infected? But it's like some mutation.
Oh,
That's where it's like the
burning.
second one where, or she's like a carrier, but like
you
some
thought
sort
that's
of
what
thing.
she originally
Yeah,
had.
I thought that's where it was going instead of where it went. Yeah. So that train scene where an infected woman gives birth to a baby and you see the baby emerging from the, vaginal canal, which shout out that. Like, I thought that all that was good. Here's what I didn't like about it.
Okay.
Well, number one, it's basically, there's a moment before where, you hear this wailing and it's like unmistakable. It's like, oh great, okay, the one pregnant infected woman that we saw it like wandering around earlier is giving birth, like it instinctively.
The zombie Virgin Mary.
Yes. And so she's
that's what it is.
I mean,
that's
it is
the idea.
It is. She's the zombie Virgin Mary.
How did that baby stay alive after she got infected?
Yeah.
Make it make sense, Alex.
They do. We'll get to that. But so she's there, she's giving birth, and she's obviously like in distress because I guess like the rage virus is not an epidural. And Jodie Comer walks in. What?
I'm actually just resisting doing Tucker Carlson with Ted Cruz with you.
What?
You're talking about zombie births? You don't know what you're saying?
How do you know there isn't a zombie epidural?
So she.
You want to eliminate all these zombies.
Right. And so she's like freaking out and she's like clearly in pain, and Jodie Comer goes in and like reaches her hand out, and there's this moment where it's like what's implied is like this holy thing or this, amazing thing that is happening, which is like childbirth, is like more powerful than the rage. So they're holding each other and they're like connecting as people who have given, birth, and it's like for a moment.
Yeah. Two mamas.
Yeah.
They find each other on a
You and
train.
me were not so different.
Right. And then the baby is born, and then she's like,
if only we could stop raging for a minute, we could just get along.
Yeah.
Didn't Civil War teach us that?
No, this is my problem. And I like, listen, I
love that shit. It's just theatrical.
It's fucking stupid.
No,
Here's why. It's not. No, because I have like carried 2 kids, so I get to say this is like I'm glad that I did, but like it has nothing to do with like the preservation of your humanity or like some magical thing like giving
childbirth.
No, it doesn't. And there are like plenty of people.
Well,
on
what do
this
you
earth.
mean by that?
It just it's like it's implied. It's like, oh well, like like here comes this baby and this is so special that like she's not dangerous in this moment. She's not infected. Like they can connect as like human beings or whatever. And it's like, oh, because like, ooh, childbirth, like how powerful.
You know who agrees with you?
You know what?
That Swedish guy.
And I just like, I don't think that is,
I think there's a slightly different way to read it.
Yeah.
Which is that the act of childbirth is so painful that it would stem the rage for a minute because you couldn't be
right. But then it's like
Jodie
Comer and her like having like this ooh mamas moment. It's like okay.
I get it. I can understand why that would.
To her point,
yeah.
And we've brought this up a couple of times. I was blown away by how much Garland is in this movie, and it's a testament to his emergence.
And it was also like when that was happening, I was like, all right, okay.
It's equal footing, I think, between Boyle and Garland in the movie. Yeah,
nature is healing and changing stuff from the beginning of the film is right out of Annihilation.
Yep. I mean, Men was the setup for the folklore stuff.
Definitely elements of Men. There's definitely elements of Civil War. I mean, he's definitely got his ideas, and it's
his hobby horses.
I was texting with someone about this, but it feels like they complete each other. Like Boyle without Garland it's a kind of up and down situation. If he's got a Sorkin script, it's amazing.
Right.
If it's Yesterday, maybe not so much. And Garland without Boyle is just maybe a little too like fuck all people.
Yes.
It's true.
Very, very cynical. Yeah. Boyle brings a little bit of humanity to some of Garland's stuff.
Except for the baby. Okay, here are my 2 other. Obviously, like the baby not being infected. And Ray Fiennes has a throwaway line about placenta. So that's, at least they put in some science in there.
Yeah.
I like placenta is pretty powerful, I guess.
But the placenta is inside the infected person's body.
Right. I mean,
how does the infection work?
I they didn't explain that. Okay. That's true. But I agree with you.
To your point, I think it's all just fanciful zombie storytelling, and I know that. But it's funny to pick the nit.
yeah. And then, but the other thing about the baby that didn't even piss me off, but I was like, this is verging on Children of Men plagiarism at the very end. And I was like, hold on. Can we do this?
Crossing the river.
Well, crossing the river. And then, and like the last line, and her name is, and it's Jodie Comer's name. And I was like, okay, I like that movie too.
Yeah.
But
maybe a stealth homage or maybe a quiet ripoff.
It's true. I guess it is also like we all are just retelling the Bible, I guess.
This movie to me has deep Christian
of course it does. It starts, in a church.
Wizard of Oz is in here.
Of course.
So then let's talk about Ralph Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes eventually, mother and son arrive. Actually, he saves them as they are being stalked by the Alpha.
They get saved a couple times,
Is the insinuation that the zombie mother was impregnated whilst infected by the Alpha?
Yes.
And so that he was the father
and, also,
and he observes her.
I was curious whether you guys read this as there are 2 alphas in the film. There's the one that gets killed on the causeway.
Oh, yes. and
then there's the other one that's hunting around.
I think the idea is that there are more and they're starting to grow and
they're kind of like precinct bosses.
Right.
Sure, yeah, if that's how you want to think about it. This guy's been watching a lot of Italian crime movies. So I think that the Fiennes character is interesting. Again, a little bit of a schematic, like what if there was a guy who had all the answers that had to fix everything, and also he collected skulls, but it's so beautifully rendered. And Ralph Fiennes, the minute he shows up, the movie, which is already kind of like sitting at an 8 out of 10, just goes like, whoop! Like as soon as he starts talking, because he's just the most dialed in actor right now. He's on a 10-year streak of everything he does is so enthralling.
It's almost 30.
I hear you, but
and also, but it is true.
He's in a late style period where,
oh my God, it's Ralph Fiennes. Yeah. Like now I'm sitting up straight and now it's happening. Yeah.
He's the closer. He can do the most with the least amount of screen time.
Yeah.
It's very exciting to see what he does. He's covered in iodine, which apparently repels the zombies. And he has developed a morphine cocktail that also neutralizes them, which is in a dumber movie, I would be like, this is so stupid.
Right.
But in this movie, I was like, yeah, that's just something that happens. This is how we neutralize zombies. This makes total sense. This guy's a genius.
And do you think that the reason why he doesn't kill the Alpha after neutralizing him the first time is because of the physician's do no harm?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's trying to coexist with the infected.
I think for our real zombie heads out there, they may be like, you just can't leave. You can't leave the Alpha standing there, man. Like
no, and it comes back to bite him.
Yes,
to some extent,
almost.
Almost.
This is the part of the movie that took on like a real Shakespearean quality for me. I thought.
I mean, it literally does a Yorick joke. So
and then there's a lot of like Spike is Prince Hal,
of course,
and getting ready to rise up to save England and stuff. But the stuff about death I thought was extraordinary for a movie like this.
It was really beautiful.
And the idea that, the whole idea of like the skulls being like everyone has seen things and heard things and said things and it's like they have their own story. I thought that the culmination of her going away and the sparks coming up in the air and the music was like up there with like What Do You See in Sunshine as like the high points of Boyle cinema. Like honestly ecstatic.
I was waiting for the worm to turn. I kept waiting for the like rug to get pulled out from under me at that moment because it is such a sincere and emotionally deep snapshot inside of a movie that is otherwise relentless and pretty mean. And he doesn't do that, but he does give you in the aftermath of that a kind of coda setting up the next film.
Right. And then you're like, okay.
Which is, to me, this is like, how best to put this? It's like putting a chocolate-covered banana on top of a completed sundae. Where it's like, I like a chocolate-covered banana. Sometimes there can be a little bit too much sweet.
I think some people would say it's like putting a strawberry popsicle on top of it. It's like a completely different flavor profile.
That's a better way of putting it. So, eventually, the young boy returns the baby brings the baby to the island where he's grown up.
Spike returns the child to the village. Yeah.
Well, in a Moses basket, sitting outside the thing.
Yes, a Moses cart, handheld cart that he picked up from Target, and
a Moses signature baby basket.
And Spike, like all great folkloric heroes must strike out on his own,
Yeah.
on his
Right.
own personal mission to find himself and to become
Just have a
presumably
simple
great
piece
leader.
of fish
Right.
Yes.
roasted over the fire.
He's hunting and fishing all by himself. He's got his bow and arrow. Zombies lay a siege trap on him. They attack. He runs away. And he is greeted at an impasse by several pastel-wearing, were they Scottish? Ninja,
Yeah.
Teletubby, zombie warriors?
Basically, and for the
Yeah.
more British savvy viewer, a Jimmy Savile lookalike, who I guess in this timeline would not have been revealed to be a child sex predator.
But I don't even know. I wonder if that was meant to be like a wink and a nod. Speaking of,
Yeah.
I need to mention, have you watched Shifty yet? The Adam Curtis
No.
film? Okay, so
Yeah.
Adam Curtis, the great
Yeah.
documentarian, has a new film that I watched on YouTube. I don't know if it's still there, called Shifty. And it's about kind of like the loss of innocence, like the desecration of England and the world in the late 20th century. And the first person that you see in the documentary is Jimmy Savile, who was TV presenter and kind of British pop personality who is revealed to be a very unsavory character in real life. And when I saw them dressed like him with the bleach blonde hair, the kind of moppish hair, and the crooked teeth, I was like, so are these guys child predators who
Right.
also double as zombie warriors? It's obviously a huge record scratch in the middle of this otherwise like very kind of stately and emotional and deep thematic film that goes right into what's the Cameron Diaz, Danny Boyle movie with Ewan McGregor?
Life Less Ordinary?
A Life Less Ordinary. Where like A Life Less Ordinary is a little bit more like, what if every scene was like we changed the dial on the radio station?
Sure.
Like it felt
Yeah.
like him just turning the dial a little bit.
Yeah, and so the Jimmy character that Jack O'Connell plays it's obviously that's in a preamble section of the film. These children get attacked by the infected while they're watching Teletubbies, and it turns out that the child who escapes becomes
Mhm.
Jack O'Connell character. Throughout the film, there's graffiti on houses and on dead bodies that says Jimmy. or Jim,
Yes.
like
The upside down hanging.
he is
zombie.
essentially becoming like a kind of evangelical figure on the Northeast England countryside during this time period.
So I thought it was fun. It's obviously the style of filmmaking is very different. I feel like Danny Boyle is a little bit less comfortable in this kind of
I was kind of wondering if
filmmaking
Nia
style.
DaCosta directed it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the rest of the movie, that
Correct.
final action sequence.
'Cause
What did you think
Boyle-
of this sequence?
Well, it took me a minute and I was like, okay, no, that is Jack O'Connell,
Mhm.
and then I was amused by that. Then I was like, am I watching Robin Hood? And then it was fine. Like it's, it feels completely of a different movie and it feels like it's setting up the next movie, which in fact we know it is.
Yes.
So it was all very obvious, but I really saw it mostly as a coda as opposed to the third
Yeah.
act of the movie.
Me
And
too.
I was still just, emotionally wrapped up and also being like, does Children of Men have like, copyright rights here?
Also written by a British author.
It's true.
I think the only disappointment I had about that sequence was self-created, because for a second I was like, he's going to get to the impasse and fucking Cillian Murphy's going to be standing there like
I
Mad
did
Max,
actually think that
and
was
it's going
it.
to rule
Yeah,
so
me
hard, and
too.
I'm so susceptible to this
Yeah.
shit. And it wasn't, but it was okay. I thought, I know your mileage is going to vary on this. There are some people who are like, this left a bad taste in my mouth,
Yeah.
and I thought it ruined the movie. I wouldn't go that far,
No, I didn't feel that way.
but I thought it was appropriate to make like yet another crazy left turn, because the movie does that so many times.
Yes.
So I just watched The Beach yesterday,
Yeah.
and I don't think I had seen it since I saw it in theaters in 2000, and I was a little disappointed by it. I don't know if you guys have seen it recently.
I have not since
I don't think I've seen it in a
2000,
while.
since, Leo season.
So, that film is in a way about a lot of the same themes. It's about this kind of quest for safety and isolation in a more perfect place. It's also a subterranean and then not so subterranean cult movie, where Tilda Swinton's character is essentially like leading this commune, this private community into their own kind of Valhalla utopia. And this movie kind of has that on the front end and on the back end. It's like the island connected to the causeway is truly quarantined from the rest of the world, and traversing across the causeway is a risk to explode your beautiful utopia. And then the second half of the film is Jimmy, essentially a cult leader, a violent cult leader, with his merry band of pastel-wearing Teletubbies slaughtering zombies all across the land. And so I just love this as this kind of like closing loop from the beach, which is where Garland and Boyle started working together, into this movie. And the fact that this idea, which in 2000 was clearly meant to be like a reflection of wayward Gen Xers who were like, I don't want to join society. I don't want to do what my parents told me to do. What I want to do is find my own little corner of the universe and live inside it the way I want to, free of judgment, with people like me. And that obviously that dream was not sustainable here, at least in America, and probably not in England either. And now, even more so, the whole point of this movie is like wherever you turn, there's a zombie. There's danger around every corner. Like there's no escaping the realities of modern life. And so I echo what you're saying about Garland and Boyle, which is like they just kind of
bring up
the best in each other. Yeah. Exactly. So it's just a very exciting movie.
Can I throw a couple more things on the fire before we leave? They bet the whole movie on this kid, and they won the lottery.
Absolutely,
he's terrific.
He's up there with like the kid from Adolescence in kid performances that I've seen this year.
Alfie Williams is his name.
Edvin Riding plays a Swedish soldier who is marooned on the British Isles.
Why? How did those guys get there? What happened there?
There's earlier in the movie. There's a scene where there's a patrol boat in the water, and they like I think even the dad points out like, oh, that's probably French.
Oh, okay.
It's the blockade.
And, and there's like a quarantine patrol, and then he explains like we sunk and we wanted to go anywhere but here because no one ever gets off this place.
Okay,
but he brings a very welcome sense of humor and also like a very funny like the modern world's like is kept going while all this crazy shit in these movies is happening, and he's like, my buddy drives for Amazon. I should be driving for Amazon right now. Like that way I would
to prove a point. I joined the Navy.
Yeah. And the idea that
and his OnlyFans fiance.
That there's a woman out there with lip fillers while the British islands are like coming apart from rage virus. It's a little on the nose, but it's also like pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so I love that and love the gas station sequence. I thought that was really cool.
Hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. The missing S on the signage. And then is it the methane?
Butane.
The butane.
Something. Yeah. Benzene.
Benzene.
Is there anything else? No, I guess that was it. Oh, the Young Father score. Fucking incredible.
I mean, Boyle's like very famous for having the best soundtracks. All of his movies, maybe barring Yesterday, have the best soundtracks. But I thought this was a really inspired and unusual choice.
It was very cool.
To have a band with some kind of like vocal addition, but not defining. Like they weren't just pop songs in the middle of the movie. Like there were long extended sequences of instrumental, and then you would eventually hear some singing, but it was all kind of synced very carefully, so you didn't feel like you were getting needle drops specifically. The last song in particular, Pals, is my favorite, the one that hits over the closing credits, but I highly recommend people check that out some more. Where does this stand for Boyle? I think this is his 14th movie. So let's pull up the filmography. You think it's up there?
Yeah, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I think so. I mean,
probably top 5 for me. I would have to like watch it again, but
Trainspotting, very important to see. Of course.
Shallow Grave is very important to me.
I think
Steve Jobs is important to you.
Steve Jobs and Sunshine.
I think we all like Steve Jobs. Sunshine, a personal favorite of mine.
I got a lot of time for T2.
T2 is fun. I would take this over T2 in terms of sequels in his canon.
What about, where would you put Trance?
I think that's an island that you and I live on. And I live happily there. I drink Mai Tais every day. Like this. I've given birth to so many takes about Trance and its wonderful finale featuring the great Rosario Dawson. I really enjoy that movie as a modern noir. And but I think it's divisive. I think a lot of his movies are pretty divisive because he takes these big swings. This 28 years later, it's got a lot of swings in it. You know, you mentioned the birth sequence, the giant.
We didn't even talk
zombie,
about the Teletubbies and just the kid massacre to open this movie.
Child murder.
Yeah, that was. I was like, oh,
shout out to you guys for thugging it out.
I was like, oh, that's how it's going to go.
I don't think you actually see any children
You see them
Get
a
go
lot of blood,
in the
dude.
room,
There's a
and
lot of blood.
and they look so scared, and that's worse.
And then
honestly.
their moms get slaughtered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it's them
Yeah.
sitting in the room watching Teletubbies and like weeping. Where I was like, well, this is terrible. I
Child
hate
Free
this.
Gang was like, let's go.
Did you ever what do you know about the Teletubbies?
Nothing.
You?
I'm familiar with their work.
You are?
Yeah.
I was like babysitting when the Teletubbies really like hit their prime. And that was a unique time.
Does that have the sort of intellectual heft of Bluey or no?
The
no, opposite.
It's like brain
but
dead.
it, but it's like it is like brain dead to the point that you are reaching like a nirvana of sorts. You know, I think it is.
I think that's interesting, but
there is
reaching.
a lot, and also like a lot of drugs definitely involved in the
Oh,
creation.
the creators,
yeah,
no doubt.
yeah, of
Okay.
that.
There's something perfect about trying to literally inoculate your children from the oncoming rage virus by putting them in front of Teletubbies. Like, it's a very smart choice.
Mhm.
And then neatly closed
Right,
with the outfits at the end of the movie.
Teletubbies. Yeah,
I think this could be top 5.
I definitely.
Where do you guys stand on 127 hours?
Nah,
I haven't revisited it in a long time.
you know, I mean, an experience to be sure, but I
Mhm.
don't need to revisit it. You know.
I watched some Steve Jobs since Tuesday when I saw 28 years later. And
Yeah.
Steve Jobs still rocks.
Should be a rewatchables.
Yeah.
Should be a rewatchables. Not on our list. 25 for 25. Did we consider it?
Is there a Danny?
No.
No, I guess there wouldn't be a Danny.
No,
Boyle, right?
but there. Listen.
You could have made the case for 28 Days Later or Sunshine to me.
Oh, I thought you meant that Steve Jobs was not on our list, and I was like,
Yeah.
it was never going to be on our list. But
No,
yeah,
but I think I did put it on the long list.
sure, but it can't. It's fine. We'll get into it later. I
because
don't want to spoil things.
Because of Apple.
Yeah, that's it. Because of Apple. Yeah,
Because of its relationship to female characters?
Because Amanda only uses Trump phone
I
now.
was thinking a lot about Kate Winslet's accent while you were talking about Steve
the Polish
Jobs.
lady
Yeah.
she plays? Yeah.
Yeah, she tries
Top
really hard.
5 Garland.
But he made her
female
the
characters.
iPad. You know, he made his daughter the iPad. So
Top
a
five,
top 5.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Natalie
Can you
Portman
name
in
any of them?
Annihilation.
Female characters.
Well, all the ladies in Annihilation.
Sure.
The robot lady, Alicia Vikander,
Sure. Yeah.
Her name's Ava.
Jessie Buckley in Men,
Yeah.
Kirsten Dunst.
Sure. Because she needed to buy that green dress so she could feel like a woman.
That's what Kaylee Spaney's character told her to do. She did it for other reasons.
Okay.
She was thinking about uniting the country with her
okay.
beauty.
Great. All
you
right.
know,
That's
using
right.
her feminine wiles to bring America back together.
Reaching across the aisle,
Heyo.
you know?
Yeah,
With
why
her
can't
palms
Nancy
out.
Pelosi and Donald Trump do that right
Yeah.
now, you know, and give birth to democracy?
hate
Am
you
I right?
So much. I just really, really dislike you.
Yeah. Where's fucking Bernie and the dead Senator
Oh my
Trent
God.
Lott? You know,
Okay.
why can't they come together?
Infected Trent Lott
Yeah.
is the alpha out on the hill.
Why can't Strom Thurmond and Jimmy Carter's corpses reanimate and bring democracy back to this country?
Don't spoil Alex Garland's Elden Ring, man.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So Alex Garland is adapting a video game, Elden Ring, which is a very popular video game that I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pretend to know anything about.
Elden Ring.
ELDEN.
This is the big
I know
thing
how
that-
it's
Okay,
spelled.
all right,
I read that
all right.
headline.
Okay, mama.
Why'd you say it like that?
Because I know she
Because
doesn't
I
like
hate
that.
that. I
Oh.
don't like it when like someone's selling me something and they're like, "Hey, mama, you got this," or like, "Hey, mama."
Hang in there, mama.
Yeah.
We got
Do you
two bath
mind
towels
other
on the way.
nicknames or just that whole
Well,
thing?
there has been like a whole the girl boss mama
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
thing has really happened in marketing
Your
over
kids'
the last 10
pull-ups
years.
are on the way, mama.
Yeah,
Hang in there.
You
Send
got
you
this,
shit.
mama.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was primarily during like prenatal workouts, and then anytime you buy any sort of mom product. Yeah,
I've programmed my Alexa to respond every time I order something on Amazon to respond to me as Wayne Jenkins. It's just like, hey, you know what, big dog? We're sending you that Nicorette. Don't worry about it.
Wayne Jenkins Alexa is a gold idea. I honestly, Bernthal should be contacted about that
Okay.
immediately. Have you learned anything about Elden
so
Ring?
no, I'm like on the third paragraph. It's third person perspective. Characters, players freely roaming its open world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Linear hidden dungeons can be explored. Okay. But like, what happens? I don't. This is you know what? When I was listening to you guys talk about Last of Us, which is obviously a show I'll never watch, but you were like, this diverges from the game, or this is what happens in the game.
I just did the research.
What are no,
Yeah.
not that.
Yeah.
Like, what is the game? Like, what?
Last of Us specifically has a lot of
point
cut scenes, so there's a lot of like filmed narrative.
Okay.
Of
So
Last
you
of
just
Us.
you're really just like watching.
Yeah.
Someone like
but then
a
you
game?
have parts of it that you play. So like, and I think what Last of Us does is it puts you in the shoes of characters that you would ordinarily consider your antagonist. It's like all of a sudden I'm Caitlin Deaver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In an open world game, you explore the entire terrain that the creators have made. So you're like going all
So
over the place that is
sincere.
made. Well,
It's like
I'm
The
trying
Sims,
to, yeah.
right?
It in
Yeah.
a way, yeah, where you have
But,
you have free reign to explore your
Right.
own.
And so you're just playing by like, now I'm going to build a house and now I'm going to.
If that's a feature of the game, I guess so. I don't
Gather
play any
some
games
seeds.
anymore.
What happened
Or
to Alex
whatever?
Garland retiring?
I pressed him on that
Absolute
issue, and he was
rope-a-dope by him.
like, I was not lying. It is true. I have retired, but also I have an idea.
It was the Tyrese Halliburton cap strain of
Wow.
directorial retiring.
Yeah. Who do you got in Game 7?
Oklahoma City. I'm sorry.
Why are you sorry?
I just don't think they're going to lose at home.
Okay, you don't have to apologize for that. I find that to be a fascinating industry story. This guy who's like theme in every movie,
Right.
making a video game film for A24.
So
That is where the industry lies right now. This is the way we are like exiting comic book era and firmly in video game era. And what was the most recent movie that it was Ballerina, where I was like, this feels like
Was like a
I'm
video
watching
game?
someone play a video game. And that vibe, that experience of movie watching, I think will increasingly infect narrative.
So I guess they're like dragons in this. It seems medieval.
It's like Game of Thrones.
Well, I've read like 3,000 words on Elden Ring, and I can't just be like, okay, like
You read
what time
3,000
period?
words just
Well,
while
I was
sitting there?
skimming.
Okay.
Looking for like proper nouns.
You
or
got this,
anything
mama. Your copy of Elden Ring is on the way.
I was just trying to understand.
I
like,
could have
what does
gotten
it
you
look
Elden
like?
Ring for Mother's Day. What a missed opportunity this was.
Are you excited for the Bone Temple?
Yeah, that's a good way to close this conversation.
Right.
So Nia DaCosta is directing the next film.
In production currently.
The director of The Marvels
Mm-hmm.
and the Candyman reboot.
Right.
2 films I did not care for. Not an English filmmaker.
Yeah.
And this is a decidedly English story thus far. It's an interesting choice. Can be done, obviously. And it is next year it's dated for.
Mhm.
That's what they say.
They just haven't funded the third one,
This movie is...
which Boyle would direct.
So what do we know? So it's Spike
Mhm.
and
Allegedly Killian, but you would have to imagine there's a lot of Jack O'Connell in the second one.
right. Any Rafe? Or he's just
I don't
there
know.
tending his.
He leaves the movie alive,
So
as far as we know.
Also,
but
he's-
that's not the Bone Temple.
You have to assume it is.
That's what I thought.
There's
Yeah, I
another temple full of bones?
Yeah.
That would be weird.
I assumed that was the Bone Temple,
Right.
but I don't know. Maybe it's all about getting back to the Bone Temple.
Okay.
Where's our young lad headed? Is he walking
Like
across
geographically?
mainland England?
Yeah, they're on mainland England.
But that's what his intention is, to go across the
yeah,
country?
I think the island is supposed to be off the water. Because the Angel of the North, that big statue that's
Yeah,
out
yeah,
there,
yeah.
is up in Tyne, I think. So I think they're supposed to be up in the Northeast. Jodie Comer does a Geordie accent in this film, so I think it's supposed to be in Northeast England.
Time. You're right.
Yeah,
So he's just trying to cross the country.
I don't know what. I don't
On
think
his
he's
spirit quest.
he's not released his itinerary.
What would Wayne
He
Jenkins
doesn't-
say about his
He doesn't
itinerary?
even know. How can he intend to cross? He doesn't know what the country is. You
That's a
know?
great point.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah.
So what's he
he's-
fucking doing?
It's also funny
He's
because
just going to keep walking
What's
until he
this guy's
can't see
plan?
the ocean. That's what, you know?
Yeah.
I felt like
Not gonna
his
get far for that.
his brain should have fucking exploded when he saw an iPhone, because he was like, "What's a frisbee?"
Right.
And then the guy's
Well,
like,
it
"Here's my
could've- it was
girlfriend
just
on
a
my
brick.
phone." Yeah,
And he was like, why does she look like that? So, but you know,
And you know what
didn't
Chris
have any,
said?
he
I'm
didn't
so
have any
glad she
service.
looks like that. Do you think this movie's going to be a big success? Because obviously they got the sequel going. This was a weird case where they funded the movie and then Sony bought it. or at least bought the rights to distribute it. It wasn't financed originally by the studio. I assume that the studio is behind the second one.
Do you know what I'm a big believer in right now?
Not caring?
Old-fashioned word of mouth.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that
Oh, yeah.
I have not met someone who walked out of this film and was like, that sucked. I've heard some that was not for me. I've seen some withering critiques of it.
Mhm.
Okay.
But across the spectrum, people are loving the alpha and what he's swinging with. And I think...
Would you let the alpha impregnate you?
I do think,
Answer
honestly,
the question.
Sinners is a really good test case where I think there was an initial, like, everybody's going to go
So
out
his
and do their
sperm
part.
Doesn't get...
Oh my God.
Is not infected? It's
Clearly not.
inoculated?
Clearly.
Yeah.
That's a great way of thinking about it. Forget about the placenta. Like, what about those guys? These guys.
He's shooting something different. I don't know. I have no idea.
Do you know how sex works?
Like if it's like blood-borne, then it, is probably like separated, and the placenta does kind of close off a wall, and you like.
I would honestly pay $1,000 to watch you interview Alex Garland about zombie OBGYN.
We didn't know the same blood type as your kid,
but we didn't know that the zombies could get erections
evolving.
and stimulated.
They're evolving,
right?
They're procreating because it's a natural imperative to do so. But let me just say, I do think that Sinners is a really good example of like a great word of mouth film.
You're trying to steer me.
We fucking asked. I thought it was a good point.
You just sat down in my chair for a minute. That was great. I was trying to explore how this fucking zombie baby got born.
Like, zombie seed. What do we know? And I'm like,
that's why this is a podcast, bro.
Yeah.
What do you? I think you're right. Something's happening at the movies, man.
I know.
People are loving going to the movies.
It's
now
sick.
they only want to go to horror movies and kids movies, but I'm okay with that.
That works for all three of us.
For its audience, Materialist did get a lot of people to the theaters.
It did.
Everyone I know, and then everyone wanted to yell at me.
They completely tricked the audience by making a rom-com trailer, and guess what? Put asses in seats. You know what that tells me? Make a real rom-com.
I agree with you.
Make a real classical rom-com with young movie stars and put it in a movie theater. Am I right?
I accept.
Okay.
One more question. This film was heavily embargoed until the day before its release.
Didn't understand this. I actually think it hurt the movie.
I agree.
Did not like this
strategy. I hope people will go see it before they listen to us, because the wonder that I felt when I was like, this movie's about Spike was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, this is coming out a little later than our episode usually would. And, it does seem like people are excited to see it. It's like tracking pretty well for a movie of this kind, which is exciting. I'm very curious to see like what the exit scores and all that stuff are, because horror audiences tend to vacillate, and I think you can watch this movie and never think of Brexit, and it's a great experience.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be that, even though we talked a lot about that in this conversation. But if you go to a movie looking for the ideas, there's so much to pull from.
I was going up to lots of guys in the men's room at the Grove and be like, what did you think about that trenchant metaphor about Brexit? Right, man?
So you were for Brexit? No. You weren't?
No, I wanted to stay brothers with the EU.
Stay together. Okay, cool. Amanda, any closing thoughts?
I mean, I'm really trying to figure out what like the endometrial lining would do, in the infected situation. So I haven't been listening to anything you said for 10 minutes. But I'm going to have an incredible
yet another episode of this
science
podcast.
corner coming up soon.
Solo science corner. So what would you want the theme to be of your solo mailbag?
The real you guys. Ask me anything about Sean and Amanda.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think people would want to listen to that, actually.
Really like?
Yeah.
And what would you reveal? What's one tidbit?
It's one of the great pleasures of my professional life.
Oh, okay.
Well, that sounds like a boring podcast.
Not good.
Yeah. Well, reminder again, mailbag, Monday, 800.
Ask us questions, movie questions. Please don't send us too many like, hey, conceive of a whole movie and then cast it out. And then also director and writer, because
this is you've opened yourself up to wanting all this input, but then you want to curate the input.
No. It's like I have a few movie ideas and I've shared them on previous mailbag episodes, and it's like, Are
you worrying about IP theft?
No.
Oh.
It's just like I have already shared all my ideas.
Movie creators.
In previous mailbags.
Sure.
So I don't have any more. So like my ideas are getting bad,
Okay.
So it's a columnist only has so many columns.
The
and then
CR
before they got to
mailbag has no
retire.
restrictions.
Funny you keep getting questions from doctors.
I should ask some of these doctors about zombie procreation.
Yeah.
That would be a great episode.
Okay.
Should extend an invitation to one of your
To
doctor
the cast
friends.
of the pit.
Yeah. What does Noah Wiley think about the alpha's ability to impregnate a zombie woman?
Noah Wiley was definitely like, this is about Brexit.
We should merge the world of the pit with 28 years
that would
later.
be
That would
great.
actually be thrilling.
Those guys would be incredibly useful in this movie. Yeah.
I would also like to not cast any films or create the films, but otherwise, I
Very
think
excited.
it would be useful to talk about movies right now. I think that's
Okay.
a better line of conversation for us to sort of like what has come out this year, what's interesting, what are we seeing, what do we think is like really happening. Like I think that stuff kind of comes up like anecdotally in discussion,
Mhm.
but it's probably better driven through questions. And I think, you're a tea leaf reader.
Am I?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think you understand the game.
Oh, thanks
Yeah.
so much. That's
so
very kind
maybe
of you.
nice
No
to
one
hear your
sees the
wisdom.
angles like you do.
You said
I
that
thought
so
you were going to say
seriously.
nice things only about us. What?
Hang on there, mama. Odyssey is coming next year.
I am really excited for the teaser trailer and seeing it with you at 8 a.m. So I need you to come back from Portland.
Okay.
I'd like to thank you both for recording late on a Friday afternoon. I was awake at 5:30 a.m. Eastern today, and here I am at 3:30
After
Pacific.
having gone through 28 years later and then driven
Yes,
quite
I
far
flew
away.
on a plane,
Yeah.
and then I landed, and I drove straight to the Ontario Mountain Village Regal Cinema.
How
watched
was that
this
experience?
film. It was nice.
Oh,
It
good.
was fairly empty
Yeah.
at
okay.
my 10:40 a.m.
Hot out there?
screening.
Hotter?
Very hot. Very
Yeah.
hot. 15 degrees hotter than out
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And then drove here and sat with you guys and had a great time. So thank you for that. Thanks to our producer, Jack Sanders, for his work on this episode. And yeah, we'll be back with a mailbag. We'll see you then.
I was doing the Princess Diana wave because it's about England.
Keep that in the episode, please.